I think this is extremely important, and I'm happy that we are actually opening with this because we are talking about mostly software development, and this correlates with technical interviews. But if the candidate is like, and I will not say like almost in a positive, always in a positive mood and always smiling, but rather acting inadequate, or just being straight grumpy, like playing grumpy. This actually communicates a lot to us, the interviewers, and it's I think it's not a good strategy if you are hunting for a job and just going to interviews, because the interviews are extremely important and sometimes even more important than your technical skills and technical knowledge. Hello everyone and welcome back to HackCast. This is episode 2 and we are here again at our studio at HackSoft's office with few improvements from last episode. Ivo, what are the improvements?
We have new cameras that are bigger, they're black and they're all the same, which should be important for our video quality.
Yeah, so we have new cameras, and we also have an improvement to our HackCast logo here on the wall. It should not reflect as much light as the previous episode, so we'll see. And I'm also with a laptop in front of me because I couldn't read from my phone last episode. And right now I have a nice zoomed screen with the talking points, so I think this is going to be better. This is episode 2, season 2. Last episode we were talking about hiring, and this episode we're going to talk about more hiring.
Even more hiring.
So yeah, let's jump right to it. Last episode, season 2, episode 1, we discussed our process and how we approach hiring 2021, 2022. And now we want to dedicate some more time in order to answer some very important questions, like what are we looking for when interviewing candidates and when making decisions? And can we actually share some general tips and tricks that are applicable for HackSoft, but I believe they're going to be applicable for other companies too, if someone is looking for a job change or to start his career in the industry. So yeah, what are the traits that we are looking for when interviewing? Let's start with your take.
So the top one thing that I'm looking for is I'm looking for a nice and positive person. I'm looking for someone that is like smiling on the interview, has this positive vibe of just a nice person, which is pretty hard actually to find nowadays. So there are a couple like really important rules here. Always be in a mood when you're going on an interview. If you're just not didn't have enough sleep or something, you better like postpone it for another day or something, just to be sure that you're in the best possible mood for the interview. Be in a nice and quiet place, otherwise it's pretty hard, especially for like a remote interview for a Zoom call or something, to feel the vibe of the person if he's like, let's say in a pub or in a cafe or somewhere else. Set up a good light. I mean, if you want the interviewer to see you well, definitely don't be in a dark place where you can where the camera cannot capture you and no one can actually see you. So the vibe in the interview, the person that I'm looking for needs definitely to be nice and positive. Is this something that you're looking for too?
I think this is extremely important, and I'm happy that we are actually opening with this because we are talking about mostly software development, and this correlates with technical interviews. But if the candidate is like, and I will not say like almost in a positive, always in a positive mood and always smiling, but rather acting inadequate, or just being straight grumpy, like playing grumpy. This actually communicates a lot to us, the interviewers, and it's I think it's not a good strategy if you are hunting for a job and just going to interviews, because the interviews are extremely important and sometimes even more important than your technical skills and technical knowledge. And if you are not adequate, which means you have no idea why are you applying for a job, you have no idea what the company is doing or that you have actually applied for this company, because oftentimes people just apply to like 15 jobs and then it's really hard to remember when someone calls you, I'm from HackSoft.
Hack what?
Oh, yes, I applied. Okay, yeah, I have time. I have 15 minutes. So for me, adequacy comes first, because sometimes it's just really hard to be in like a positive mood if, for example, things are like not going well in your personal life, or you just have other things to think about. But if you are adequate and if you communicate, for example, you say have a good rest. If you haven't slept well and there is an important interview, just like say it. You know, just to be sure, I haven't slept well. I'll try my best, like best effort. But if you're wondering why I'm grumpy, it's just because I haven't slept well. So for me, adequacy comes first, and then the positive attitude and vibe that a given candidate is actually expressing. And again, this is something that sometimes candidates, they don't think about it, but whenever someone, for example, comes to an in-person interview or in front of a camera and it's like that, like not into it, this communicates, and we are not getting a good sense of the soul code vibe check.
Yeah. When you say adequacy, what do you mean? Because it's basically a pretty big word. It can mean a lot of things, and obviously everyone is looking for adequate people.
Yeah.
But how do you determine this adequacy? How do you check for if the person is adequate?
Okay, so I'll start with an example. Last episode we discussed that we are doing phone screenings, and that the phone screenings are actually a good idea. And the question that I always open up the phone screening with is, why are you applying for this position?
All right.
And you know, this is a meme question.
Of course it is, yeah.
It's a meme question because I need money. And it's funny when you post this on social media, and we can have a good laugh about this and about this meme, but it's not funny when you answer it like this.
Yeah.
And for me, this signals inadequacy. Why are you applying for this position is a meme question, but it's also a serious question. And sometimes the answer is, well, because I'm looking for a job. And this is a good answer if you add additional context to it. And being adequate is, for me, is adding this additional context, like I have just finished my studies and I have determined that it's time for me to look for a job. And right now I am actively applying for different positions, and this is why I applied to your company. And perhaps if you can add even more context, I am applying for your company for this specific position because my skills are on the front end. I'm pretty confident with React. And I just want to start working. I just want to start gaining experience. And this is actually an adequate answer to, I need to find a job. And if someone answers with, I just need money, like, why are you asking me this? Then I will most probably ask the same question again in different shape or form, three to four more times. And if there is no answer or no context given, then for me this is a big red flag.
Or probably the person is hiding something.
Then after this question, usually we talk about, so on the phone screening, we start with why are you applying, then we talk about previous work experience. And sometimes I ask the candidate the question, why do you want to change your jobs? You're currently working somewhere, and since we are right now conducting this interview, you are looking for something else. And I ask an honest question, why are you changing? Why do you want to change jobs? Are you just exploring? Do you want a pay raise? Do you want to work with different set of technologies? And I try to understand some of the motivation behind why we are at this point conducting this particular interview. And sometimes something really interesting happens when the candidate says, well, I have a conflict with my manager, or I'm not feeling like really good fitting in this particular company. And I usually follow up with, have you discussed this with someone at your current job? And again, adequacy is being able to answer both yes and no, and also provide additional context. Because if you say yes, and there's not going to be a change at my current place, so that's why I'm looking for another place, then great. But if someone says no and cannot give context, this is also okay, because sometimes you need to like become aware that there is a problem, and that's why you start looking for different jobs. But if you haven't raised that problem at your current place, then for every new employer, I think this signals that this particular pattern and behavior can replicate here too.
Yeah.
And at least for us, we try to like avoid this, or try to help the candidate at the very beginning, at the phone interview, understand why they want to change places.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can we even search for adequacy in the CV level, like the first touch that we have in the candidate?
Oh yeah. So CVs, there are different opinions about CVs. Like there are people that like shiny, beautiful CVs with different layouts inside of it, charts, graphs, and stuff like this. What I'm looking for in a CV is just information.
All right.
And if this information is like laid out and structured like a text, readable text, then this is more than enough for me. So like a plain Word document with formatting, not just dump some text there with
right.
various format, with like formatting, consistent formatting is enough for me. And whenever I see inconsistent formatting or a CV that's sent like a docx, I mean, those are very, very small details and nuances that are important. You want to send it as a PDF, most probably. You want to have a lot of information that's important for the employer, like your past work experience, relevant to the position that you're applying. This is it for me. What about you?
Well, I'm definitely looking for a picture.
Okay.
Because I'm pretty terrible with names, and pictures definitely help me memorize the candidate. Again, nice and positive pictures, nothing that you just have somewhere laying around. You better take a picture for this CV and spend some time doing it. Especially for candidates without any previous experience. That's pretty common. Something important for me is to see something that they have worked on. I mean, even if you don't have any work experience, you can always create a hobby project, try to write some code in this particular language, so we can have a conversation starter. We can have something like, hey, I saw you are doing, let's say, a small game or a small program for selling tickets in a cinema, something like an university task or something like that. Just send some code to have a conversation starter to show that you're interested in this technology or in this profession. And I think this is almost everything about the CVs. They don't really need to be like extremely well looking, like custom designs,
not at all.
Spend money on templates or something. They just need to be well formatted with a picture and
with consistent formatting.
Okay, yeah.
Because this like if you receive a CV with inconsistent formatting, the chances of actually dismissing the candidate right there are pretty high.
I agree mostly because people that are looking at these CVs, they are constantly working with text, and it's terrible for someone that is like day-to-day working with text to deal with unformatted text. It may seems really like not important for a candidate because it's just a text, you're going to read it either ways. But if it is badly formatted, then it's really hard for the one trying to read it.
So, and also send PDFs, and the
PDFs
rest
are a must, definitely.
I agree with it. There are nuances that can greatly. So let's just give a few tips and tricks for CVs, at least from our experience. There are a couple of nuances that can greatly improve your chances of getting an interview, especially at other companies, because we always call people, like we always do phone screenings. So you will get a call from us, but for other companies, they might just ghost you, like no answer, nothing. So I really like when someone self-evaluates in their CV. Like, I am straight out of university, and here are the projects that I have worked on, but I have no real actual work experience. And I love this because it is a conversation starter. It shows that this person has done something, but it sets the expectations in the right place, because I will ask about motivation and interests, and we'll talk about perhaps an entry-level position. So or I have some experience, but my experience is, I feel it's not great. which is great for me because then I will try to evaluate what not great means for this particular candidate. And I'm looking to change my job because I want to get better.
All right.
So self-evaluation for me is like a small nuance, but it really helps. And the other thing is you mentioned picture. For me, one step above picture is if you can send a video.
All right.
What do you think? How would you react if you receive a video alongside the CV?
Well, I would definitely watch it. It would definitely help me feel the vibe before even doing a phone screening. And yeah, it is great. I mean, I don't think we ever received a video, or did we?
I think once.
Okay.
Once, but I'm just thinking like this will stand out. And with the small caveat, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing this word correctly, but the same way you want to have consistent formatting for your text, you don't want to send a crappy video to your potential future employer.
I agree. When you're talking about self-evaluation, what do you think about these like modern templates now that send their, let's say, my Python knowledge is 3 stars out of 5 or 5 stars out of 5, and I know HTML like 3 stars out of 2, something like that. What do you think about this?
Nothing positive. I actually ignore it.
Okay.
Because it's just random.
Okay.
It's rather if you self-evaluate on the scale of 1 to 10, then this does not really, it shows nothing. I'd rather want to see self-evaluation with text on how you perceive yourself.
I absolutely agree with this. Yeah. Every time I see Python skill 10 out of 10 and I'm like, oh, come here, let me check that.
Yeah. And, I think it's a gimmick. It looks good, but personally, I just ignore this. If I see charts on CV, I just ignore. I scroll for past positions. Like this is extremely important. Like in our industry, I think one of the hardest things to do is to actually get your first job. And getting your first job then suddenly opens up quite a lot of possibilities because you will be able to put previous experience on your CV, and most of us employers are looking for previous experience. This is extremely important. So yeah, this is what I'm looking for.
What about the order of the CV? A lot of people start with like the most important things on top that are relevant for this position.
Yeah.
And some people start with the generic things like which high school I graduated and do I have a driving license.
Again, same thing. If you start with the most relevant and important information first, then great, because I don't have to scroll. If I scroll and see some academic whatever in Bulgaria, for example, Pazardzhik city, I just don't care. I just don't care what high school you have graduated. Same thing for university, most of the times. So I have we all have biases. My personal bias is the Faculty of Mathematics and Informatics, but most of the time I don't care. I care about relevant experience. What's your relevant experience? That's it.
Yeah, important things for this job at the top, and then all the other things that you just want to add there.
Yeah, because most of the CVs are kind of the same. Like you've studied at either Telerik or SoftUni, or Technical University or Soft University, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So that's about CVs, and let's talk about expectations. That's another question that I love asking during the phone screening, the technical interview, and the follow-up interviews after this. And the question is usually, what are your expectations of this particular job that you are applying for? What do you expect to happen differently from what's currently happening at your job? And generally speaking, what are your expectations? And that's why I ask this question quite a lot, because sometimes people don't know. And if you make them think about it, it may actually help you present yourself and actually find a better match as an employer if you have a match on expectations.
I would say that this should be hard for people without any previous experience.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of questions on the interview that are not like true or false question. There is no a right or a wrong answer. So on this type of questions, you can just think out loudly.
Exactly.
You can just say, I don't know, but in my previous work, I was doing this and this, so I expect to do almost the same, but the different pieces, in my opinion, should be this, this, and that. So
exactly.
Just on this kind of question, just don't answer, I don't know. You may not really have a opinion or like anything on the table, but just think out
I don't
loud.
know. It's actually a valid answer, but again, add some context.
Yeah, of course.
If you have no previous work experience, you can say like, I don't know, but I just want to start working. I want to gain experience. I want to see what I'm capable of, which is actually a good answer. We had one of the folks that we hired gave a really good answer. Like, I want to work in a team. I am working alone, and there are like no options of not working alone at this particular place. And I was like, great, that's a great match because we are working in teams. You're not going to work alone here at HackSoft because we are optimizing for teams. And this was a great match, and so far it's been a great match with that person that we hired. So expectations are important, and it's something that candidates should ask first themselves. But if they don't do it, then expect to be asked this particular question, and don't give a like who cares answer.
Yeah.
All right,
should we jump to the technical things?
Let's jump to a technical thing.
Okay, what we normally do is sending a task.
Yeah, takeaway problem.
That you have like a week or two to solve it. And first thing that's really important is if you don't understand something in the assignment, just send back a question on the email. It is part of our job. When you don't understand what needs to be done, just ask questions. And sometimes that's even part of the task. Ask the right questions in order to get the right information. We are trying to be as clean, as explicit as possible, but sometimes the assignment may be cleaner.
Yeah, of course. So asking back questions is actually a good thing.
So I'm doing some of the technical interviews, especially when it comes to Python and Django. And the code that you send, first advice, spend enough time on it. Don't try to do it like in 2 hours and then send it back as early as possible. It is definitely okay to send it in the last possible moment. Spend some time, think on it. Try to improve it. Don't send the first draft that you made, because this is going to be the conversation starter. This is going to be something that I'm probably going to share my screen and start asking you questions on top of this code. And if the code is not your best, then it's fine, but you need to be able to explain it, to speak about how you can improve it, and ensure that you deeply understand the things that you did.
Very important, and I want to touch a little bit on this. It's like it's not about send like the perfect code, because there is no definition about this.
Impossible.
Yeah, it's impossible. But rather, do your best effort to put the code in a place where you feel comfortable with. And if you don't know where this place is, because this usually comes from experience, at least do 2 more iterations after you're done. Just look at things, just see how you feel about the code, and just make sure it's not, you haven't left your hands in there, as we say in Bulgaria.
If you're using some kind of a abstraction, let's say a package you installed or some part of the framework that contains some deeper abstraction, some magic that is happening below, ensure that you understand it, because you're most probably going to get asked for this. And if you just spend like a couple hours reading about, even reminding what you already know about this piece of abstraction, it is definitely going to be a huge plus for you. That's
extremely important. Expect to be asked to explain whatever you have in your code. If you put something that's not very clear to you, just like expect to answer. It's not very, I know what this is doing, I know why I'm using it, but it's not very clear to me on implementation, how it's implemented. And this is actually a good answer, but rather, why are you using this? And the answer is, I copy pasted it from Stack Overflow, is not a good answer.
It is not.
Yeah, and we are looking especially on the technical interviews, we are looking for not only surface level understanding. Let's say Python and Django. Surface level understanding is what's Django about, and for example, basic concepts of the object relational mapper, the ORM, the models, views, and stuff like this. This is surface level, but at least what we are looking for is a somewhat deeper understanding of why and how beneath the surface. And this is extremely important because you may be using models, but if you don't know what those models are representing, or don't know some underlying relational database things, then at least for me, this is not a good signal.
And I'm often asking something like, try to explain this. Imagine that I don't know anything about
really
programming.
That's really good.
Imagine that I'm like a first grade student. Try to explain what is this code doing, or what is this abstraction that you're using doing. And I think that's pretty hard for most people. So it should be a great exercise to try to explain the things that a lot of people are day to day using things like, let's say, serializers.
Yeah.
And yeah, they can use them in production code. They can modify them. They can do everything with them. But if I ask to just explain to me how this is working and why is this here, they found it really, really hard.
Yeah, and like a version of this question is, for example, let's imagine this particular piece of abstraction does not exist in the framework. How are you going to approach it? Are there other ways to do it? And this is like like an iteration of do you understand this, but on a deeper level, like answer the why, or at least know some of the why, because we can't expect everybody to be completely familiar with the Django code base and abstractions, but at least know some reasoning about it.
It's pretty important when it comes to big piles of abstractions, such as the Django, that you know not only how to use it, but how it works and what are you going to do if we don't have it.
Yep.
This is especially with people with a PHP background. It's pretty common for them to know how things work because they're used to not using them back in the days where we don't have such abstractions. And these abstractions are really nice to have them in place, but you definitely need to know how things are working under the hood. Another, I think, pretty important tip for me is when you're being asked something and you don't know the answer. I mean, especially with technical questions, it is mostly Boolean. It's like true or false. Is this working this way or this way? You can try to guess. You can try to think out loudly. But what I'm seeing is probably like a popular advice in the books. I don't know. When you don't, what people are doing is they just start talking about different things when they're being asked questions. And this is extremely annoying to me. Every time I ask a question and the person just
jumps to something else and start explaining it.
Let's put it like, tell me how this ORM in Django is working. And the person is, I don't know about the ORM, but the HTML tags are working in such and such way. Nothing in common, man. Just go straight to the answer, or tell me that you don't know it, or try to think out loudly. I mean, this is another nice approach, but never just start talking some random stuff.
Yeah, I've seen this especially when we were doing front-end interviews. Because I suppose there are things are more vague there, but like you're asking something specific, then the answer is something completely different. And this is also not a good signal. And again, it's about thinking, and it's about for me it's about best effort. It's about saying, I'm not really sure, this is what I've read, and this is what I think it is actually happening here. Because this opens up the possibility for a conversation, because we can ask follow-up questions, we can guide the candidates with examples to a place where to the answer. And this is an extremely important skill to have if you are going to be a software developer, because we don't know things like out of thin air. We know we can navigate, we know we can reason about them, when we know that we have the problem-solving skills. The rest of it, it's documentation, it's pattern matching, it's reusing existing components, but you need to be able to reason about your code, think about your code, express, arguments and ideas that might not be the case or truth and be able or be willing to test them. So I think this is what's important about the technical interview for me.
You said being able to navigate. Do you share your screen when doing an interview looking at the code, or you ask the candidate to share
I always ask the candidate to share.
Okay, and if you're talking about a particular abstraction, let's say a function in Django that is being used, do you ask the people to jump into the definition?
Yes.
Okay, and what if they don't have like jump to definition in their
I ask
setup?
them, how are you going to solve this?
Okay. This is really important. In order to get below under the hood and understand abstractions, you need to be able to jump there and see the code.
Yeah.
It's pretty often on the interviews where the candidate doesn't really know the implementation, but during the interview, just press a button, jump into the code, see what's being done there, and try to figure it out loudly. This definitely works. This is okay for me.
Yeah, and if you, of course, right on the spot, if you don't have go-to definition and you don't want to set it up, you can. I ask the question, so how are we going to solve this? One answer is, I'll just look at what I need and install the right plugin, depending on the editor. The other answer is I usually push them towards, let's open GitHub.
Okay.
It's an open source, so let's navigate GitHub. So yeah, that's why I always ask the candidates to share their screen rather than me sharing my screen with my setup, because this also reveals patterns and habits that are going to be translated after this into work patterns and work habits. And if, for example, this particular candidate is an extremely good fit, especially culture fit, and I see some bad habits and patterns, then I know those habits and patterns are going to be the very first thing that we're going to work on once this candidate starts working with us. Anything else on the technical side?
Well,
what's the time? Oh, all right. I think we're pretty good, and we can wrap with if we have something else on the technical side, and then talk a little bit about culture fit, and then do an overview.
My technical checklist is empty right now.
All right.
I think we talked for almost everything that I think of.
Yeah. And yeah, before we do the final wrap and summary, let's talk about culture fit, because this is something that we started looking at recently and interview for recently, which basically is the question whether this candidate is going to fit within the company, feel well within the company, and match our values.
Yes.
It's extremely important, because every time that we hired before without checking for culture fit, we ended up parting ways with the candidate because of culture fit. So some of the questions that we ask might be in that direction. And the thing that we discussed about, for example, for me, for adequacy and being able to give your best effort and think out loud and navigate the problem and reason about it and answer honestly non-technical questions are part of the culture fit that we are looking for. And sometimes, in order to be sure, because you cannot be 100% sure, you need to do more interviews, and you need to perhaps be in the same room with that person to see how this person behaves. What you?
Well, I think that for me, it's definitely the most hard part in the whole interview process, because technical interviews for me they're kind of easy. Like day-to-day doing development job, it's pretty. It is the easiest part for me.
And you can catch them lying in a technical interview pretty easily.
Yes. But asking the right questions in order to check for a culture fit is the hardest thing for me. That's why probably I need like 3 or 4 interviews with the candidate in order to double and triple check my opinion on that. So, and it is, I think it's even more important than the technical interview, because technical things we can teach you, we can work on that, but with bad attitude and with things that we just don't value the same things, it is not going to happen. So we definitely do present our company values in the interviews, and we try to speak with the candidates about them.
And we are more than happy to answer questions about the company if the candidates have some. And this is also a good thing if they're asking you questions, because the questions that they ask you may give you some idea about what they're looking for and what they're valuing in a particular company. And for me, like, there are 2 general cases. The first case is when we are hiring someone with previous experience. then culture fit is something that we will most probably look more into because this person is coming from another company.
Yeah.
And then when we're hiring someone with very little or no experience, and if this person is willing to just come inside the company, join HackSoft, and be willing to fit whatever this means, then the culture fit is like being developed over time, and they may not have the right culture fit, but if they are willing to just join and learn and be better, then we will make sure that they will fit. So those are my two general cases about culture fit.
Yeah, a lot of people are just not asking any questions. They feel like being on an exam, They feel like that the questions need to be only one direction, only we are asking questions. And you're definitely not helping yourself that way.
Yes, it's not an exam. It's not an exam. You need to be asking questions, or if you really don't know what to ask what should I be asking?
That's a valid question.
What should I be asking? I really don't know. For me, it's best effort activity. I really don't know. I have no experience. I like the vibe of your company. What should I be asking? And then this will help me give some direction to this person. And I think that's the culture fit. And the final decision that we make, I think, is based on good enough technical knowledge, because we can train this. We're good at this, and it's really good culture fit. Like, those are the final two things that we take into consideration before making an offer. And we might have even made an offer earlier in the process just to get out the financial part out of the way, because this is also important. But then again, it's culture fit, and it's beyond surface level knowledge and willingness to learn. And for me, again, I will say it's best effort. You don't necessarily need to be like really, really, really good and knowledgeable in all of this, but rather you need to be willing to give your best effort in order to develop further.
Yep, try your best.
Yep. And I think that's it. Are we going to make a summary? Like, I have 4 points.
Go.
All right, so spend some time with your CV, but don't overdo it. Consistent formatting. Be adequate and have a positive attitude, at least for me, and Ivo touched more on the positive attitude and the vibe, which is important. If you don't know something, say that you don't know it, which is important.
It's a valid answer, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or try to think out loudly about this problem.
Yeah, best effort applies here. And if you know something partially, say that you know it partially and explain your thinking and explain your reasoning. Like, it's extremely important. It's not an exam. It's rather a conversation to see if we're going to have a match.
Absolutely. Let's round it up.
Yeah, that's it for me. Do you have anything else to say?
Nope, nothing.
All right, so this was HackCast Season 2, Episode 2, More Hiring. We will be more than happy if you have feedback, and if you have like additional questions, we might record another episode, or we might just do a live stream. Who knows? We have all the tools,
all the needed equipment,
all the needed equipment to answer and expand more on this topic. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.